Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Honor the Land on Big Play Sports Network. I am Max Loeb. He is Chef Zay. This is an emergency pod. We had to do it. Zay's in a car on vacation. I had to rush down to record this episode, guys. There is so much to talk about. We talked about not having anything to discuss in the middle of June, and then all of a sudden, the Browns move to Brook Park gets approved. Ogbo Okoronkwo gets cut. We got Diontae Johnson saying a bunch of stuff. We got the Browns rookies going to the zoo. Zay, how has this past week been for you? Has it been nuts being on vacation while all this stuff has been happening?
We were eating somewhere and I just looked at my phone periodically and was like, wait a minute, is this notification right? Ogbo cut out of left field. I made a post about it. Go to the comment section. First thing you see is this is not a left field. And it's like, okay, who had this? We briefly talked about this before the show came on, about how he was in that trade rumored conversation, but there was no indication, nothing that would show that he would be gone. So it's been kind of crazy. Vacation's been awesome. Weather's been good. Sun's been hot, but we're hanging in there, and good to see you. How you been?
I'm good. I've been doing a little bit of a ballpark tour. I was in the wonderful city of Baltimore, Maryland on Tuesday, and I was in Detroit yesterday. But I've been good. It's been a crazy, crazy week in the Browns world when we really didn't think it would be. Obviously, the Ogbo Okoronkwo cut, that was, out of left field. I think anybody's trying to, get on their soapbox and say, I knew this was happening. We thought he could get traded. Nobody thought he was going to get cut straight up. After the draft passed and there was no trade, you're like, okay, he's probably going to be on the roster. So I don't think anybody truly believed that this was going to happen as a post-June 1 cut to save $4 million. But the other thing that kind of threw me off was the Brook Park thing. I mean, we've all known that it was a real possibility and it seemed inevitable at some point, but it moved really, really quickly. And the change to the Modell law to make sure it could go through. Obviously, the Browns getting this big endowment of about $600 million. The Bengals also getting an endowment of about $400 million, but they're keeping their stadium downtown. There's been a lot of Ohio football news the past week, but we talked about it very briefly before the show. The big piece of Ohio football news, Trey Hendrickson still has not gotten paid, and that, I think, plays into the edge rusher market where Ogbo Okoronkwo, which we'll talk about in a little bit here, wasn't going to get the extension with the Browns, but I don't know if if Ogbo Okoronkwo would have gotten that much money elsewhere if he were to be traded and get extended somewhere else.
Is it leading up to another former Cleveland Browns defensive end to find his way in the AFC North? We've seen it a few times actually, but what if he found his way in Cincy? Trey Hendrickson gets traded, Ogbo goes to Cincy and keeps it in the family. We see him week 1 and he sacks Joe Flacco or something like that.
I was thinking you were going Baltimore. I'm not going to lie. But, yeah, no, I could see it.
No, they can't afford that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
We can't afford that.
I don't think – yes, the Browns can't afford it. I think Baltimore would do whatever at this point. It's not a money thing. It doesn't seem like a money thing. We all knew Ogbo Okoronkwo was not going to be on the Browns next season. It was just a matter of trying to get something for him. We'll talk a little bit more about that in our next segment. But there is some more stuff going on in the Browns world. Obviously, you had the Diontae Johnson interview that went pretty viral about not being warm, which I think was taken a different way than it was really meant. But Diontae Johnson, who didn't go to the first part of OTAs, who's been on, 4 teams or 5 teams in the past 2 years, has had a lot of questions raised about him, and the interview certainly didn't help with those questions.
I want to know, I get the whole Baltimore situation, but what happened in Houston, too? What didn't he have a short, brief stance there? Yeah. You would think of a guy like Diontae Johnson who has, he's no bum. He's clearly one of the more gifted creator of spaces in terms of receiver, and when you see Tank Dell go down, you figure, well, this guy could definitely contribute. What happened there? I get if you want to use the whole I wasn't warm enough to get in there, so I'm not going to risk anything. Okay, fine. But there's still more to the story because you had another opportunity to go somewhere else, and it panned out the same way. So hopefully this Cleveland stint for him can be something to get him back on his track, to just put all of that stuff in the past, and maybe we get the best out of Diontae Johnson.
I hope you are right, because that wide receiver room looks bare right now. We will talk a little bit more about that, as well as the extra $4 million the Browns have now. Do they make a move at wide receiver? We wait to see. We are going to move to our next segment, talking a little bit more about this Ogbo Okoronkwo move up next on Honor the Land on Big Play Sports Network. Welcome back into Honor the Land on Big Play Sports Network. I am Max Loeb. He is Chef Zay, and Honor the Land is proudly sponsored by Infinity. Infinity. Safety never looked this good. Test drive the Infinity QX80, the 2024 IIHS top safety pick. Safe, sleek, sophisticated, the all-new QX80 and IIHF's top safety pick is a safe choice in every luxurious way. The all-new Infinity QX80. You put your family first, and so do we, with a suite of standard safety features. The 2025 QX60 and IIHS top safety pick plus is as safe as it is luxurious. Safe enough for your little ones. Meet your new security blanket, the 2025 QX60. Ogbo Okoronkwo is now a free agent. The Cleveland Browns have cut him. He is no longer on the roster, and now the Browns have to look internally at other solutions at the defensive end spot. We're going to talk about what this means for the roster here in a little bit, but before we get into any of that, who's on the team? Zay, I want to talk to you about this because we walked in to the NFL draft about 24 hours before round one, I believe, and there was a Jordan Schultz report saying Greg Newsome and Ogbo Okoronkwo were in trade talks. Those were two pieces the Browns could very much move to get an extra pick or two, to get some future assets. Greg Newsome, it's the contract thing, right? We know he wants an extension. You want to get ahead of the extension, whatever it may be. That was always the case with Greg Newsome, and it was if the Browns don't feel like they can give him an extension, they're going to trade him. If they do, they'll probably keep him around and work out the contract. For Ogbo Okoronkwo, though, it was very clear he was not going to be on the Browns next year. It's a very clear, quote, vet. He's not that old, but vet thing where this team you're on right now is not very good. You have one more year on your contract. You want an extension. You probably don't want to play there next year. You talk to the team. They trade you for your sake as well as the overall sake of the team. It's a mutually beneficial thing to trade somebody who, not going to say Ogbo Okoronkwo wanted out because there was nothing that made it seem like that was the case, but a mutually beneficial thing to move on from somebody like that. And the Browns didn't pull the trigger. Then all of a sudden, 2 months later, they do pull the trigger, but they cut him. They don't get any future assets. That really surprised me, Zay. Did that surprise you?
Oh, I think it had to have surprised most people. Number one, just in terms of the vibe that he brings to the locker room. He was a locker room guy, high energy guy, always gonna put a smile on your face. Like, I think it speaks volume to what they think of Isaiah McGuire. He's sitting at number one on the depth chart. When you look at this offensive front, you got Myles Garrett, Malik Collins, Mason Graham, Isaiah McGuire. Then in that second and third, you're looking, and it's like the new guy that they brought in, Julian. How do you say his name? Okwara. He's third on the depth chart there, and then you got the other guy, Joe, and then his is Tyrone
Shainka. It's a tough one.
Yeah, he's second on that depth chart. So I think it speaks volume to what they think of the new talent that they got in along with Isaiah McGuire. But I just to echo what you said, it is kind of crazy to think that they wouldn't at least try to get some sort of asset when they had the opportunity during the draft. But also I'm wondering if this is a play, like you mentioned, that $4 million. Could this be something where they maybe try to spend that money and bring in one more guy before training camp ultimately comes around?
There is absolutely a trade-off with the money. I'm 100% with you. I am more curious to see if it's a free agent this time around, and we'll talk wide receiver specifically here in a little bit. I'm more interested to see if it's that, something for right now, or you're trying to get a little extra money for Greg Newsome. I think that's a very real thing with any cap-saving move that the Browns have made or are actively making. Maybe will make this offseason too. We don't know. This one came out of nowhere. I am fascinated to see the financial impact that has on the next contract the Browns give out, because I have a funny feeling saving that much money randomly in June is not just a coincidence. They want to pay somebody. So I am fascinated by that, but I also want to raise you this question, Zay. We sat here about a month ago talking about the post that Ogbo Okoronkwo liked, talking about Myles Garrett not being a real leader. And collectively, we didn't think it was a big deal, right? He didn't show up to OTAs. Ogbo Okoronkwo liked the post saying he's not a real leader, didn't think it was a huge deal, kind of got brushed off. What happened between then and now, nobody knows, right? What the outside looking in people, us, see is an opportunity to trade Ogbo Okoronkwo in the draft. Not happening, obviously. You move on. He's on your roster. Not like you draft a younger defensive end to potentially unseat him or fill his void. Obviously, you signed Joe Tyron-Shanka, but you don't bring anybody in to potentially unseat him. And it seems as if you're walking through the offseason with him on your roster. And there's definitely some young talent in the defensive line room, but you're walking with him through the offseason. Then that happens. Cut like that a month later. I don't know if it's just a coincidence, especially considering Myles Garrett seemingly is getting the GM treatment, right? A little bit more headway in the front office. We saw the interview with Andrew Siciliano where he said he was made aware of the quarterback plans. Whether we believe it or not, he is saying that, right? The front office is talking to Myles Garrett. That was part of, I think, why he wanted to sign the extension. He gets a little bit more headway. I don't know if it's just a coincidence that just like that. It happened very, very randomly.
Yeah, it's super weird. You when you pose it in that term, I wonder if it's like, did Miles take offense to it? It doesn't seem like that would be like something that would happen, especially because it seemed like they had a very good relationship on the outside. But you did mention the whole, could it be a little bit more money for Greg Newsome? We got to remember, there's another guy that's going to be due for a contract pretty soon. And before last season, he was good. He was looking at a ginormous payday in Martin Emerson. So is this a year where you're kind of like, which guys are going to continue to be the cornerstone pieces moving forward? You mentioned, or like, we haven't really even got into the whole Brook Park thing, which we will hear on the next segment. But like, we also got to remember, I've been talking about this for so long now. A lot of their moves are going to be looking towards 2029. Who's going to be making the cut? Who do you want to be a part of this franchise? And I think a lot of this is going to be an audition towards that next chapter, which is Brook Park.
Absolutely. We will talk about Brook Park in our next segment here. Ogbo Okoronkwo cut from the Cleveland Browns. The Browns now one defensive lineman short, signing a kicker, Andre Smith, as well. We will talk about a little bit that at the end, but we're going to move on here, talk about Brook Park up next on Honor the Land on Big Play Sports Network. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into Honor the Land on Big Play Sports Network. I am Max Loeb, he is Chef Zay, and we are officially, or all but officially, on our way to Brook Park. It seemed inevitable at some point, but the Modell Law was kind of played around with a little bit, approved by Ohio, and now the Cleveland Browns will be all but moving to Brook Park, as well as the Cincinnati Bengals getting a very similar financial endowment to stay downtown in Cincinnati, which is, I think, an overall good thing. But I want to talk Cleveland Browns here. It seemed inevitable. It seemed like it was going to happen. Zay, what do you make of the all but official Brook Park move now that there's a little more legal power behind it?
I knew it was, I mean, there was no, once you seen the back and forth go, you already knew that money was always going to win it. If a
100%.
billionaire says he wants to go down on somewhere to Brook Park and create more money and bring in more revenue and invest in something, chances are it's going to happen. I think a lot of this stuff that you've seen from the city was really just to show like, it's not, it was like a bluff almost in a sense, not necessarily calling the bluff, but it's doing their part and saying, hey, Cleveland, we tried to keep this thing down here. You can't say the city or the mayor or whoever was doing this thing didn't try to at least keep it down here. And this, we're going to exert every resource possible to do so. But in the end, I mean, we already knew that this was going to happen. I think it's going to be, as much as I wanted to keep it downtown myself, I think it's going to be phenomenal. I think once we see it, we'll have our bitter emotion. We talked about it last week where it's the Sour Patch commercial where it's mean at first and then it gets sweet and savory after. Once we see what this environment's going to look like, once we see how the tailgating situation is going to be, Browns fans are going to have a heyday and a new shiny toy that we can call our own. And then on top of that, you're not going to hate having all the extra events down there when there's nothing to really do. And then you're like, oh, well, we can go to Brook Park for this massive event that we would have never had. So in the short term, yeah, it probably sucks. But I think overall it's going to be just what this city kind of needed.
Absolutely. And I think you put it into perspective when you talked about the controlled environment. I want all Browns fans to look at it like this. Downtown is obviously awesome. It's a lot of fun, has a lot of history, but I want you to imagine, assuming your travel logistics are handled on each side of the game, going to a place in a warmer, controlled environment in the middle of winter, hopefully playing meaningful football, and having the opportunity to get absolutely tanked at the places around you in the stadium, even if it's a little bit more expensive. Having that opportunity where you can watch your favorite football team and not be covered in snow and sit in 30-degree weather is going to be unbelievable. I go back to the Chiefs game from this year. It wasn't wildly cold, but it was cold enough that you had to bundle up, and then it started to rain. Anybody who sits here and is like, I want to do that, I want to go watch Patrick Mahomes play my favorite team in disgusting
While being 3 and
weather,
12.
while being 3 and 12. Hopefully that's not the case in 2029 and beyond. But there's no way anybody wants to sit here and actually do that. I think it's a front almost at some point, and I am very, very pro keeping the stadium downtown. I think it would be awesome. I do think a dome is almost necessary at this point, but I would have liked to keep the stadium downtown. However, if it means a little more opportunity in terms of the food and beverages, obviously Cuyahoga County has also been permitted, if I'm not mistaken, to seek a little bit increase on the sin tax, so everything will be a little bit more expensive, but that's the reality. Jimmy Haslam's a businessman. It's also the reality of the world that we're in. But Jimmy Haslam's a businessman. He's making this move to make money. And, Jimmy Haslam, as crazy as it sounds, has the ability and has had the ability to shell out money for whoever he wants. I know the Deshaun Watson thing didn't work out, but he still gave Deshaun Watson all of the money he wanted. He just gave Myles Garrett an enormous extension. I want all Browns fans to put that into perspective right now, where you willingly have the money to pay really whoever you want, arguably the best player in your franchise history outside of Jim Brown. You can just pay him. Just say, hey, Myles, take all this money, and compare it to the other Ohio football team 3 hours away who can't even sign their first-round draft pick. So there are some good things to this. There are some good avenues the money-making move will allow the Browns to explore. And I think overall it will be a good thing. That last game, I don't know how much I'll be willing to pay, but I'll be willing to pay a lot of money to go to that last game downtown, though.
That last game is gonna be. They honestly should start selling tickets now.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be crazy when that happens. But for the crowd, like for two things. Number one, we're all gonna miss seeing that one big husky dude on TV when the snow's pouring,
Yeah.
and he's just got a scully on and some gloves, and he's 12 beers deep. We all are gonna miss that. But once you get inside and you're just like, oh, I can take this coat off. Oh, I can wear my jersey without 17,000 layers. Oh, wait, I actually get to see these players play and not be painful. Like, oh, we're losing by 10 and it's snowing and it's raining and it's -20 and I got to walk back to the car and all of this. Like, it's going to be a nice breath of fresh air. And then on the other side of it, to the actual football people, because I know there is people who love the element of outside and love the advantage that it brings. Just think back to all of the years, guys. How many times has it benefited us? We have yet to really play in December, late November, and be like, oh, the Browns are playing meaningful football. I can't wait for it to snow so we can get an edge on these guys. Miami has came in. New Orleans has came in. We're not even going to talk about the other AFC North opponents that we faced. We've never really gained an edge in the terms that people are saying you get for playing in the element. So maybe this is what we need. Maybe we need to pull ourselves out the element. Let them brave the whole coming into the airport, getting cold and all that stuff, and just having that we're in Cleveland mindset. That's where we can take the advantage and run with it. But in terms of it giving us an edge, us losing an edge, guys, Phil Dawson had to put up his own flag to figure out which damn way the wind was going to blow because it was so hard to figure out. So it probably might work out. Let's just be patient.
I know people are going to hate me saying this, but I want everybody to think about the atmospheres in the 4 AFC North stadiums. You have Pittsburgh, who will be playing in the snow in December. You have Cincinnati, who will be playing in the snow in December. You have Baltimore, who could potentially be playing in the snow in December. How is that any different from what the Browns have now? It's not. That's what I'm saying here. The advantage the Browns now have is a different environment, right? You talked about it, Zay. The Cleveland Browns having this stigma's not the right word, but this thing above their head where, oh, you got to go play in Cleveland in December. Number one, yes, you're right. There's not a lot of meaningful football that's been played in December and January here. But number two, at what point is that meaningful football and that advantage the Browns have in playing outside and in the cold actually going to matter. Think about the teams that are good in the NFL right now. The Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Baltimore Ravens. I think Cincinnati's up there. Denver, I mean, maybe. You'll get that weather in Denver, right? The only really good team I can think of right now in the AFC that will never have to deal with that is the Houston Texans. And it's not, to me, a huge deal that the Browns are going away from AFC North football. Like, the Cleveland Browns have a different, or will have a different home field advantage compared to the teams in their division now, which is a good thing. That's what you want. And there's no difference other than, you're going to Cleveland and you got to face the dog pound than you would be playing in Pittsburgh around this time of year, Cincinnati around this. Like, there's no difference. There would be no advantage for the Cleveland Browns outside of a team from Miami or Houston coming up to play you in December. And even that, I think, is a little overblown.
I think before we go into break, I just want to echo that one last time, because what I think people are not really seeing the bigger picture on is we are the advantage now. The fans, it's going to be we talk about being the best fans in the league. Can you imagine being in an enclosed environment and actually filling up the stadium because you're not going to be sitting in negative 20-degree weather? You know how loud that stadium is going to be? We are going to become like, you're going to be in that talk with the Seahawks and Arrowhead, even though Arrowhead's played outside, but they're winning football games. That's why their stadium's filled up in December. If you have 40,000 Browns fans in an enclosed environment, oh man, they might actually you might create a retractable roof because it's going to get blown off.
That is a great point. I love that. We are the advantage, and it's the truth. The fans are the advantage at this point. We're going to go to break. We're going to move on, talk a little bit more about the wide receiver room and Diontae Johnson's comments up next on Honor the Land on Big Play Sports Network. Welcome back into Honor the Land on Big Play Sports Network. I am Max Loeb. He is Chef Zay. And believe it or not, we do still have more to talk about in the dead of the offseason in June. We had Diontae Johnson being interviewed, talking about his time in Baltimore, and a very interesting game where he was not warm and didn't go in the fourth quarter, refused to go in. I think a lot of us remember that from the season last year. I want to make sure everybody knows when we're talking about warm, it is not the climate. It is Diontae Johnson, and if you listen to him talk in the interview, you would hear this. It is him not playing at all or not doing anything in the first 3 quarters of the game. He was not warm, meaning he hadn't gotten any action. He literally wasn't on the field doing anything. Whose fault is that? We don't know. You can stay warm on the sidelines, all this stuff. That's not what we're here to talk about. But it most definitely rubbed Browns fans the wrong way because of his history being on 5 teams in 2 years, as well as the overall atmosphere that the Cleveland Browns, they're still going to play in the cold for 4 more years, the overall atmosphere that they play in. Zay, did you make anything of those Diontae Johnson comments?
I didn't get to really have an opinion, all because I was out here, so I didn't get to dive deep into it. But like, I'm not gonna sit here and act like we're gonna hold a grudge on this thing. It's a 1-year deal. It's an opportunity deal. I think I'm leaning more towards the fact of optimism, just on the simple fact that this is right in the alley of what Andrew Berry and these guys like to do with players who are not necessarily on their last leg, but when everyone's kind of just disregarded them, bring them in to create another opportunity. We've struck lightning with pretty much everyone that's happened with. Joe Flacco was the biggest lightning in the bottle out of all of them. We've done it with Amari Cooper. We've done it with Jerry Jeudy. Like, we continue to find guys that people are just not necessarily, I don't want to say write off, because it's not necessarily writing them off, but just guys who got a little bit of juice left in. And I think Diontae Johnson, as long as he's true in what he's saying, that it humbled him and that he's looking to move forward, it's a 1-year thing, right? There wasn't anything before any of, like, when he was in his time in Pittsburgh where he was some locker room headache that I can remember. So maybe this was just a bad patch in his life, and he was going through some stuff personally, and this is his landing spot, and he can rejuvenate his career.
I hope you're right about rejuvenating his career. I will say, and I've said this, I want to say more than once, but I've said it at least once regarding him not showing up to OTAs. You hit the nail on the head, Zay. This is an opportunity deal for him. It's a 1-year deal to go on a team that has a pretty bare wide receiver room that's going to prop you up in a pretty prominent role on this offense. 1-year deal, show the NFL you still got it. You get extended in Cleveland, you get extended in Cleveland. If not, you can go sign somewhere else. And I think a lot of people, including myself, I've defended him. I think he's still got it on the field. But when you look at the fact that Diontae Johnson bounced around from 3 different teams just last year alone, you look at, there was some stuff in Pittsburgh about the targets, the drops. You look at that stuff.
The drops, yep.
There have been issues with Diontae Johnson. So getting a fresh start somewhere for anybody in life, not even football, just in life, is an awesome opportunity to prioritize putting your best foot forward. And I have not seen that in the 2-3 months he's been in Cleveland. That's the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
Not showing up to OTAs for whatever reason, right? For whatever reason. And then this interview, which again, I don't think is a horrible look. I really don't. I think when you look at the quotes on Twitter, it's worse than what he actually said, which is the nature of the media today. I don't think it's a horrible look, but there has been minimal done, at least from what I've seen, what we've seen in the public eye, that makes you think this fresh start is going to change something for Diontae Johnson. I think it's so clear to see on the field he still has it. I think you watch a lot of games last year, especially those in Carolina. He can win one-on-one. He's a good slot guy. There are very few corners in the NFL, I still truly believe this, that can consistently lock him up one-on-one. I think he's that good of a route runner still. But this fresh start has not shown any promise. It's the offseason, but what we've seen the past 3 months, it's hard to believe this fresh start truly will change anything. And I hope I'm wrong, but it's hard to believe that it's going to change.
Well, they say the one thing that cures all is winning. So maybe if we come out these first couple weeks, he's got a few targets under his belt. Maybe the winning will, mask everything else. And I mean, how long has he been in the league now?
5 years, 6 years, maybe.
So he's probably in that vet stage, diva receiver, just the typical stigma that follows receivers. But like you said, yeah, that's not a great look especially if you're trying to create like the new start and getting off on the right foot. Like you would be at those OTAs, you would be the first one in line. Like you would be trying to prove to yourself that you're wide receiver one. Like even though Jerry Jeudy has that under wraps, but you would still be trying to do everything that you could. And I just think about all of the guys they did show up to OTAs and stuff like that. Like there are guys that are bought into what's going on right now. You can clearly see that it does feel like there's a new sense of energy flowing through. And to have that one guy who's new, who does have a little bit of potential, it would be nice if his energy matched everyone else's.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's a really good way to look at it. We as people who are not in the Browns building can't say Diontae Johnson is acting a certain way or is not acting a certain way with his teammates or things like that. But when you look outside looking in again, which is all most of us can see, there are people like I always highlight Luke Floria, a guy who has risen up from Kent State, who has made the most of every single opportunity he's had. And it's different because he's had to really work his way into the NFL. He wasn't even drafted. And then there's other guys who don't show up to OTAs for whatever reason. Like it's hard to believe outside looking in that both of those players have the same exact mentality of being like, I truly, truly want to be here, put my best foot forward, and will do anything to help the team win. I want to go back to Amari Cooper before we move on, though, because the Browns saved $4-ish million from cutting Ogbo Okoronkwo, and I've pounded the table for months on end saying the Browns need to get some other wide receiver in here. It turned out to be Diontae Johnson and Luke Floria when I was saying that, but they have more money now. We talked about a potential extension of Greg Newsome, whoever it may be, just a potential extension this season. But now they got a little bit more money, and there's guys like Amari Cooper and Keenan Allen still out there in free agency. Is there a chance that either of those guys or a trade and an extension for a guy like Chris Olave happens, Zay, do you think?
I don't know if they really want that. Like I'm just sitting here looking at the depth chart, and we talked about it for a couple weeks now, especially with the 2 running backs that they added. And just a quick side note, Jerome Ford's number 1 on the depth chart right now. Just throwing that out there. But I don't know if there's enough target. Like I think that if they were to bring in a receiver, that receiver would have to be okay being a third, fourth option, in my opinion, because you know that they're going 12 personnel. You know that they're going to work these tight ends like they've been doing when they were running the Kevin Stefanski offense. You have to get Jerry Jeudy his targets. You're banking on Cedric Tillman to pick up where he left off. And oh, by the way, you've got two new shiny running backs, and then you got a guy who took less money to prove that he's worth money or worth another contract in Jerome Ford, who was a home run hitter for you last year. Um, but then again, as I double look at this, they got Deshaun Watson as our QB1 too. So
Yep.
this depth chart's wrong.
Depth chart. Don't believe the depth chart you see in June. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But either way, though, I just don't know if the guy that they bring in would be okay looking at this. And again, we're not in the lot. We're not in Kevin Stefanski's offensive meeting rooms to know what that offense is going to look like. But I can't imagine there's going to be a plethora of targets for a guy like an Amari Cooper or a Keenan Allen of that high caliber name. So maybe it is going to be one of these guys that are just going to have to take the world by storm and just make the most out of every opportunity that's given to him.
Yeah, and by default, there will be opportunities because the room is so bare. Jamari Thrash, Diontae Johnson, Luke Floria, if he gets out. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for not just the top two guys, Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, but the guys underneath who are working to establish themselves as a third wide receiver. There will be opportunities by default because there's nobody else to take their targets away other than David Njoku, Harold Fannin Jr. a little bit too, and then whatever running backs get involved in the pass game. We are going to move on to our next segment, Never Sunny in Berea, up here on Honor the Land on Big Play Sports Network. Welcome back into Honor the Land on Big Play Sports Network. I am Max Loeb, he is Chef Zay, and this is Never Sunny in Berea, our patented segment where we attribute weather reports to people within the Browns building. Now, we walked into this week not thinking anything was going to happen, and then out of left field, you got stuff on the offensive side of the ball, stuff on the defensive side of the ball. So those are the two areas we are going to attribute weather reports to, and we're going to start with the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to go first here because I really want to talk about this Diontae Johnson stuff a little bit more. I look at the offensive side of the ball for the Cleveland Browns with the wide receiver room that looks a little bit bare. And I get a little bit worried. I really do. I've said it multiple times that you have to throw to win in this league. I know the Browns are going to try to establish an identity. I am not convinced that that identity of taking care of the football and playing solid defense will be enough for the prolific offenses in the NFL. I worry about that. However, I also look at that identity and feel really confident in the personnel they've put on the roster to lean into that identity. The offensive line looks healthier than ever, and you have quality depth, not just depth, quality depth along the offensive line. You have some really, really good running backs. Whoever's going to play quarterback, you feel confident in their ability to manage the game. That's all that's going to be needed about a quarterback. I think it's this weird weather where you feel like a storm is coming, the clouds are above, you can almost smell the rain coming, and the clouds disperse. It gets really, really nice. I think it's going to get nicer for the Browns because of the personnel that they put on their roster, even with the big cloud of the wide receiver room.
I look at this as the almost kind of like what you said. It's that April showers bringing May flowers, except it's happening in June. It's just one of those things where it's like you're looking, it's like, I don't know if I should do this in the garden today, or man, we really need some rain today to get these crops going. Like it's that weary feeling that something feels like it's not off, or you're just want to get through that little patch, but then once you're through it, it's like, oh, well, that was needed because now look at my flowers. Now
Yeah.
look at my tomatoes growing. And now look at the receiver room flourishing and look at the running back room. Like it's just June, right? It's that end of June, beginning of July. You're kind of just letting your emotions take over everything now because we've exhausted every conversation. We've talked about all the possibilities. You see a new story with Diontae Johnson, and it gets you back into that fluster feeling. So it's not anything to panic about. It's the rain that's needed to see this garden grow. And I think Kevin Stefanski is biting at the chops to get this offense back in his hands and get this play action going. And I think we're gonna buckle ourselves back up to for some slow now like that. Just that remember that it's not an explosive offense, but it's that window on that car, that 1999 car, where it may
Yeah.
not go down at first, but once you get it going, it's gonna go down.
I like that. I like that. I want to raise the question, Zay. this wide receiver room, let's call it a storm cloud over it, just with everything that's going on. Is there anything that can remove the storm cloud from the wide receiver room?
Until like when?
Let's say, is there anything that can remove the storm cloud from the wide receiver room before week one?
No, because no one's gonna buy the hype of the training camp stuff. No one will buy the hype of the little clips that the one or two series you may see from the starters. This is the storm will go away, or that cloud will go away once you see these guys a few weeks into the season and you see how this offense looks and you see the opportunities that they get and if they're making them or not. I think everyone's gonna be sitting there. You know what you're getting out of Jerry Jeudy. I think he's the only one that you can look at other than David Njoku and say, okay, I know what I'm getting out of this guy. But they've shown it. We've seen glimpses of it. And I like to always think back now that I have something to reference that 2023 training camp year, last year, where I was watching these practices during training camp. And I'm just like, I really, really hope that this is not the offense that we see in the season. And it turned out to be that. Whereas this year we're seeing Jamari Thrash make some really, really good catches. We've seen the deep passes. Obviously, these are third string guys, first string guys, and some rookies, but I think we have to take what we see in these practices with a little bit of grain of salt, but also look for that different type of offense than we've seen. Because while it may not be the exact type of offense that we see in the regular season, it is a glimpse. And so far, they're showing you that they love this from Cedric Tillman and they love this from Jamari Thrash.
Do you remember the clip? I believe it was 2 off seasons ago of Martin Emerson locking up Justin Jefferson
I
at a
was at that
joint
practice.
There you go. So you do remember it. You saw it.
Yep.
I want to ask you, if we see a clip of, let's just say Cedric Tillman, because I think if there's a receiver to remove this storm cloud, it's going to be him if he's really good. Let's say there's a clip of Cedric Tillman absolutely cooking J.C. Horn or Quinyon Mitchell. They've had joint practices against the Panthers and the Eagles. You don't think people are going to buy that hype? I do.
Oh, they'll get hyped for it, but I think we also have to remember, and I think Browns fans will remember, the Austin Watkins of the world, the Elijah Moore clips of absolutely sunning Denzel Ward in practices. Like we're talking about Denzel Ward too, that he's in that conversation. We've seen training camp heroes. We saw Cedric Tillman hit those deep post corner routes in practice last training camp videos, if you remember those. So like we've seen this stuff before, but unfortunately for Browns fans, we can only take so much of it until the season gets here, and then we're like, well, this is why we said we needed to go get more receivers. But we're both Cedric Tillman fans. I think he's going to be a really good wide receiver too for us, and I'm also thinking that Diontae Johnson he's gonna make a little bit of noise.
I hope you're right. I think we've said it once every month since we started the show. Cedric Tillman is the key to the offense. If he can step up and even partially replicate that 3-week stretch he had with Jameis, the pass offense is going to go to a new level because you can't just zero in on Jerry Jeudy. Somebody else is going to have to step up. It's going to be Cedric Tillman, and we believe it. Let's shift to the defensive side of the ball, though, because you now lose Ogbo Okoronkwo, and you're leaning into the youth. We are big Alex Wright guys here, obviously, but we also really like Isaiah McGuire. Those are 2 players that are going to have more prominent roles now because Ogbo Okoronkwo is gone. Now, Alex Wright, Ogbo Okoronkwo, different kinds of players, in my opinion. But Isaiah McGuire and Ogbo Okoronkwo, to me, are not wildly different. I think that's a better comparison. I'm curious, Zay, if you had to give a weather report, the defensive room, not defensive line room, defensive room, what would it be now that Ogbo Okoronkwo is gone and they're leaning into the youth a little bit more?
I'm personally looking at this differently just because I feel like this is that dreadful heat that's beaming down. Like so in Tennessee right now, it is so nice when the sun is not out. Like the breeze is so beautiful. Like the air feels good. It's not humid. It's not that but when that sun comes out and it's beaming down on you, it is a whole nother different world. And I'm like that sun that's ready to get from behind that cloud with this defense because I think this defense is pissed. I think this defense wants to get back to what they did in 2023. I think that all signs show that they will get back to that defense. Every move that really has been made has been geared toward this defense. And I think that this sun that is hiding behind this cloud cannot wait to burn the hell out of everybody who's given up and thrown them away. So I'm looking at it like that. I think it's just that there's one big cloud in the sky, but as soon as that cloud goes away, oh, it is freaking game time. And that cloud will come and will move away in what, September? September, second week of September, first week of September?
So the cloud, do you think that's what do you think the cloud is? Like what has to move?
Protection. The
Uh,
the
uh
time.
okay,
Time.
okay. That makes more sense. Okay. So
I think this defense is ready. I think we're just I'm antsy to see how hot is this sun gonna be? How good is this defense gonna be? Because you've added some really big pieces, and to take your first two picks on the defensive side of the ball, that lets me know that this defense it should be going back. It should be going back crazy again.
it definitely lets you know that they believe in the youth there. And I hate to look at next year in June before this season starts, but the two first round picks next year,
Hmm.
obviously, you can say all you want about drafting for need. The Browns didn't really draft for need this year. That was the reality of it. And a lot of teams have moved away from that. But you probably have more flexibility on the offensive side of the ball next year in the first round. Now, if you have all of these young pieces like Mike Hall, Mason Graham, Isaiah McGuire, who knows what's going to happen with Carson Schlesinger? We're big fans over here, but Carson Schlesinger could blossom into something. And then a DB room who's a little bit older but is locked down for the next couple years, assuming they get Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson, or both back. They have to feel really good and confident about this. It's the end of summer weather, at least how I view it, the end of summer weather where you're loving it. You know what you have. It's really nice, but it could get a little bit nicer if 10 degrees are taken off that thermostat where it's 70 instead of 80 and it's still sunny and you don't have to worry about sweating through your clothes and things like that. If you have just a little bit of a nicer weather forecast, even though it's already really good, it's going to be even better. And I think that cloud comparison is really good too because there's something that is hanging over the Browns defense that makes it hard for a lot of people to realize the talent they have. I think it's potential. I think it's that term potential. That's the cloud where it's very much a double-edged sword in the sense that you know what you could have, you know how good this team could be, this defense could be, but if it doesn't live up to the hype, it's going to stab you because you already used so many resources on this defense. I think it's the potential idea, the unknown almost. And I think, like you said, time will solve that.
The cloud is the 2024 season. I think a lot of people are feeling a little scarred. They're feeling a little betrayed from seeing the 2023 defense into the 2024. But I think people need to realize that that 2024 defense wasn't comparable to 2023 because the offense was night and day different. While sure you went through five different quarterbacks in that 2023 season, you were still putting up 23. You looked it up the other day. What was it? 23, 24 points a game through that back
Yeah,
second half
yes.
stretch. You were still playing meaningful football late into the season where you got to close it out at home against the Jets. Whereas 2024, you could barely get to midfield. You were barely putting up 15 points a game through the
Yeah.
first 6, 7 weeks throughout the season. So that time of possession battle, your defense was out there, 3/4 of the game. Of course, they're going to end up letting up points eventually. So I just think people are just a little bit scarred from last year, but this offense should be night and day different. And I think this defense will reap the benefits.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And you heard Joel Bitonio talk about that identity of holding on to the football and playing complementary football. That is the key to winning in the NFL. Still think you got to pass to win, especially in the AFC, but that is the key to winning in the NFL. Absolutely. We are going to wrap up here on Honored Land on Big Play Sports Network. Up next, looking forward to the 4th of July. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into Honor the Land on Big Play Sports Network. I am Max Loeb. He is Chef Zay. We are going to wrap up here on this wonderful, wonderful Friday, June 27th, when you're listening, potentially after. We got a lot of Browns news, but we are looking forward 1 week ahead to the 4th of July. Zay, I want to close by asking you your 4th of July plans, any fun things you have around the city, or if you're getting out of the city.
As far as around the city, I don't know. For the past few years, my cousin from Michigan usually comes up and we spend the 4th of July at the pool. She always brings some fireworks up and stuff. That's kind of been our past 3, 4, 5 year tradition thing. So I don't think there's anything. Maybe go watch some fireworks. I tell you what though, there's no fireworks comparable to what Euclid used to put off. Like I'm what 32, so like 17 years ago, probably even longer than that, 20 years ago. The fireworks is just like, oh, this is cool. Are you a fireworks guy?
I'm not. I
Really?
know that's crazy to say. I have grown up so much, and my parents who are watching this can attest. Any family vacation we went on, when I probably up until the age of 15 or 16, I hated fireworks. I don't anymore. I don't anymore. But I will honor my past and say I'm not a big fireworks guy. The show the Guardians put on is awesome. I love that. I'll be at Dollar
That
Dog
was
Night
good. Yeah.
tonight and next Friday. So if any of you guys are there, make sure you say what's up. I'll be in standing room. But yeah, I am not a huge fireworks guy. I've grown into it, but I don't know if there's anything better than just being outside, having a drink with your friends, having a garage beer with your friends on the 4th of July, regardless of where you are. You could be by water, you could be at Progressive Field, you could be in a nice little grassy patch playing a game. Hopefully, fingers crossed, the weather holds up, but I don't know if there's anything better than just hanging out. That is the epitome of the 4th of July, regardless of what you're doing. Hanging out, grilling out, and just relaxing.
Do you have one memorable 4th of July? I have one 4th of July that
Mm,
I'll never forget. It's not
I
anything like
do.
off the wall, but I was I was sick one year and my stomach was so upset and we were debating on not if we wanted to go watch fireworks. And I just remember like barely making it through, but then as soon as the fireworks started to go out, I was laying on my stomach. The rumble from the fireworks just made my stomach feel so good. So for that small 5 to 10 minute window while the fireworks were going on, I felt manageable. But the second the fireworks were off, my stomach started hurting again. I'll never forget that 4th of July.
Wow. Well, I actually have another 4th of July related to my stomach as well, believe it or not. And
Wow.
I actually think a lot of people, not in the stomach part, a lot of people, when they hear the question you just asked, most memorable 4th of July, will say the same thing I'm about to say. I remember my family at home, always 4th of July, there's a road race, we get bagels after, it's great. I remember between that and the 4th of July parade, letting the bagels run their course, I see a notification. Kevin Durant is signing with the Golden State Warriors. While I'm on the porcelain throne, absolutely floored. Like, this was a thing. And in Boston, they had just flown him out to the Hamptons. They had just met with him. And our delusional minds as Celtics fans were convinced he was going to come. He was going to have the Larry Bird impact, all this stuff. Nope. He is going to Golden State. They create the super team, win 2 rings after him. I will
Ruins our
never.
lives.
Yes. I will never, ever forget that 4th of July, not because of the holiday, but because of Kevin Durant. It's kind of fitting now that he got traded to the Rockets, but I will
Wow.
never, ever forget that 4th of July.
I cannot believe that that was a 4th of July event.
Yep.
That has maybe I put that so far back in my memory, maybe because he ruined the next 2 years of basketball for us. But like that wasn't a time. You bring me back to such a weird time because we just won the championship. We're feeling like this, and next thing you know, it's like we just beat the 73-9 freaking Golden State Warriors, and now they get Kevin Durant, who at the time they were saying was the best player on the planet, and is he better than LeBron? Like I remember that stretch vividly now. So thanks for bringing back some
I know. I'm
PTSD. I
sorry.
appreciate it.
I'm sorry. I mean, that regardless of who the Warriors matched up with in the finals, nobody was ever going to beat that Durant-led team. It literally took a series.
We would have beat him. J.R. Smith screwed us, but that's neither here
Well,
nor there.
that is also true. That series, but I go back to the Raptors series where like Durant barely even played, and then it took a really
He got
bad
injured.
injury.
He tore his Achilles.
Yep, tore his Achilles. Took a really bad injury. I think people forget Game 6. The Warriors were in it. It was very much back and forth. They started to pull away a little bit. I believe third quarter, Klay Thompson gets hurt. He tore his ACL. So I go back to that, and that was an injury series sent from hell for the Warriors, and that is literally what it took. That a ridiculous team put together in one offseason in Toronto, and a 6-game series to dethrone the Durant-led Warriors. Durant-led, not Curry-led. Durant-led Warriors, but that's neither here nor there. 4th of July is next week. We will see you guys next time on Honor the Land. We appreciate you watching and listening. See you next time.